Hi guys, and welcome again to my channel. And let's go over the table of content of today's video. So the first thing we will do is to define what a server is. Then we will go over what is a relational database, and we will also define and talk about what SQL is. And we will go over some examples of relational databases. Alright, so the first thing we will be talking about is what is a server. Let's keep it simple. Let's think of a server as if it was an archive room or a library where you will see different aisles, and we can consider these aisles here as databases. So let's say, for example, this aisle here, we'll call it database 1, and this aisle here, we'll call it database number 2, then database number 3, and database number 4. So if we take this first aisle here, as you can see, it has two sides. First side, which is this one here, and you will see the label for it. And the right side should be on the other side. Once probably you pull this aisle out, you will be able to see the other side of it. Now, for these sides, actually we can call them a schema. So for example, the left side, we'll call it schema 1, and the right side, we'll call it schema 2. So for now, just accept this word schema, and I will explain you in a few minutes what that is. Then, so pretty much the schema here in this example will tell us which side of this aisle we will be actually looking at. Left side, schema 1, or the right side, schema 2. And as you can see here on the left side, which is schema 1, we have different shelves. These actually shelves, they have different files. So we can consider these files as if they are tables. And the best thing actually the best way to explain you this again, so let's go over the interface that we will use to actually get access to our server. So this is here our server, which has an instance name, or it's called actually SQL Learning. That's our instance name. This name here on the left side, that's highlighted, and it says desktop AI7QPRF. This is actually just my computer name, but the server name is actually here right after the backslash, which is SQL Learning. Now, this item here that's highlighted, think of it as if this is room, this whole room here, which we talked about earlier, that can be either an archive room or a library. Now, these items here, or aisles, that says DB1, DB2, DB3, database 4, these are actually the databases under this server here, which I highlighted on the left side of my screen. And these databases, or this databases folder, I will expand it so you can see all the databases that I have here. So each one of these that I'm clicking on represent one of these aisles that we have gone through earlier. Now, as for the schemas, So let me expand one of those databases. Then I will expand the tables folder. So the schemas are actually anything here right before the dot. So for example, we have DBU dot, that's the schema. Human resources dot, that's a schema. Person dot, that's a schema. So the schema here, let's think of it as which side, left side or right side of the aisle. So it can be, for example, schema 1, and then whatever comes after the schema name here will be the table name, which will actually represent the name of one of these files. And one table actually may have multiple schemas. Those schemas, we can use them, for example, for those shelves. We start from the top, shelf 1, shelf 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We can name them whatever we want, and we can set them up actually within our SQL Server the way we want, so we can better organize our database. And the schemas actually will make it easy for the user to look up data or a table. Once you see the schema, you will know that the table you are looking for will be within that schema. Actually, you don't have to keep looking. For example, if I'm looking for employee table, I will know that it will be under the human resources. Like that, I won't be looking under person or production or sales or purchasing or whatever schema that I have here. So the moment I will be looking for an employee table, automatically in my head it will be under human resources schema. So these are the tables here that represent those files. So hopefully this will give you an idea of what a server is, and will break down actually all the items that you will be using under that server in this picture here. Okay, and next we will be talking about relational databases, or a relational database. Pretty much what that is, as you know, one database will have multiple tables in it, and we will take this example here. So let's say this is a DB1 or database 1, for example. It has 4 tables in it. The first table will be the customers table. The second table is the orders. The third table will be the order items, and the fourth table will be products. So all these actually tables are linked together based on one or multiple columns within those tables. So for example, let's take just these 2 tables here. These two tables actually are linked based on the customer ID. As you can see here, we have the customers table has multiple columns in it: customer ID, primary key, customer first name, customer last name, the street, city, state, and zip code. The orders table has order ID with the primary key on it, customer ID with foreign key on it. We will go over primary key and foreign key later on different videos actually. Then we have an order date and order amount. So the way you can tell that these 2 tables can be joined together to display whatever info they have or whatever info you are looking for, the first thing you will be looking at is if there is any column name here in common between these two tables. So the moment we find one column that's in common between those two tables, we can tell that these two tables can be joined. So you can see here customer ID under customers, and it's linked to customer ID under orders. And the same thing between orders and order item. So we have an order ID column that can be found within the order items table as well. And as you can see here, the join is linked between those two columns in common. And the same thing here between the order items and the product table. We have product ID that can be found between those two tables. So pretty much this is actually what defines a relational database, where you can tell that you can join multiple tables based on the common column across those tables to actually display or look for the info that you need. And one example here that we can go over is, for example, let's say that you made an order on Amazon. And once you finalize that order, you will get this final activity screen that will give you your order details. So whenever you see this, when you place an order, not only on Amazon but on any website, when you place an order for anything, or if you made the payment of one of your utility services, anything like that, where you place an order or make a payment, you will get a final screen that will give you the details of that transaction. So in here, when you see this screen here, probably in your head you'll be thinking that all this data is saved in one table, which actually which is not true in especially in SQL, because in SQL, for example, the order detail info here, you will find it under this table, orders. It will give you the order date, the order number, and the order amount, which is the order date, order number, and order amount. And as for the shipping address, this data you will find it on or under the customers table. As you can see, there is first name, last name, street, city, state, and zip code. As for the item that was ordered, which is this computer gaming case, that one you will find it under products. That will tell you the product price, the product description, which is this here. So that's how actually the relational database work, where you have, again, multiple tables that can be linked or joined together based on a common column across those tables. Right? Hopefully this will make more sense to you now. Whenever you hear a relational database, automatically you will think of this picture here and the next one as well. So it will make better sense to you to better define what that is. Alright, so the next thing that we will go over is what is SQL, or some people they call it SQL, some people they call it SQL. I'll actually call it SQL for some reasons. It stands actually for structured query language, and SQL is used to communicate with the database. So it's a kind of a coding language that you will need to learn in order to communicate with those tables that I showed you earlier, like the customer table. If you need to pull info from it, if you want to pull info from the orders table, you want to know when an order was placed and who placed it, and was it paid or no, was it fulfilled, shipped, yes or no, things like that. In order to pull all that info, you will need to use the SQL or SQL language to get that info. So it's pretty much the standard language actually for relational databases and management systems. So, and what can you do actually with SQL? As for those items, actually I will list them here. So with SQL, you can execute a query against a database. You can retrieve data from a database or a table. You can insert records into a database. You can update a record or an existing record in a database. You can delete a record from a database or from a table. You can create a new database if you want, or you can create another table. You can do too many things once you learn how to use SQL. Right, so over here we will go over examples of what is actually or some examples actually of relational databases system that are used. The first one is MySQL, which is a relational database. The second one is a SQL Server or Microsoft SQL Server. We have the DB2 and Oracle. There are too many other systems that can be considered relational database management systems, but for now we'll just list these actually. Okay, so the next thing that you will need to know when you deal with the databases and relational databases is table structure. So for example, we will go over this customers table. As you can see, we have this table that is actually formed of a group of columns. These group of columns here, they will literally form a record within that table, like one line or one row of data within this table. And in order actually to insert data into this table, you will need to define those columns by giving them a data type definition. So for example, if you want to insert something under this column here, customer ID, you will need to define it first, so that database will know which type or format of info can be entered within that column. So if we give it a big int, which is actually an integer value, these values can be actually, I'll give you here some examples in a form of like a whole number without any decimals. Usually you see these when you go open a bank account. They will give you like an account number, which can be actually this thing here. When you do a membership at the gym, they give you a membership ID, which can be also a value that look like this. The next thing is the customer first name. So that one, if we give it a varchar or var character of 50, meaning that any info we enter or any value we enter for this column here, it should be in an alphanumeric value, like for example John the third or Patrick or any first name that you can think of. When we define 50 here, meaning that only 50 characters can be entered as a max. So you can enter 20 characters if you want. You can enter 30 characters, 40, 49, up to 50 characters. So if you try to enter a name that has a value over 50 characters, that value will not make it to this column, and therefore you will need to go back to your table and increase the size of the varchar here. So you will go from 50 to 70, 80, or 100, or whatever number you think that value will fit in. So the same thing here for the customer last name. We will give it also a varchar of 50, which can be an alphanumeric as well. And as an example of a last name, we'll just use John Doe as an example here. So this one has 3 characters, which is fine because our max is 50. That's the maximum of characters we can enter for any value that will go under the last name. As for the street, we'll give it a varchar of 150, which can be also alphanumeric, can be formed of numbers or characters or combination of the two, like this: 1, 2, 3 Ivy Street. As for the city, we gave it a varchar of 50, and we gave a value here of Los Angeles. And for the state, we gave it a char 2, or we can use varchar 2, which actually which is alphabetic in this case. We'll give it 2 characters. Usually that's what we use for the state abbreviations. In this event here, we will be using CA for California. For the zip code, we will give it varchar 10, and probably you will tell me here, a zip code is a number and it's just 5-digit numbers. Why you gave it 10 digits in this case? So the reason I gave it 10 digits and I set it to a varchar as an alphanumeric is because sometimes some systems or companies, they will enter your zip code in this format, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dash 9000. So the numbers here are fine to be numeric, but the dash here will be considered as a character and it will be alphabetic in this case. And there are multiple actually data types that can be used within SQL. We will go over them once we start actually going over codes. Some of them here, I will list them in the right section of the screen, like the date, for example. When you have like an event date or a date of birth, you will use the date data type for the value that will go towards that column. There is also a date time where the value will be showing a date value, with a timestamp. That's actually the exact time when that event or action happened, or when that record gets created into the table. There is also a time data type, where actually the value will be in a form of a time, like hour, minutes, and seconds. There is also a money for currency values, a float for any number with decimals. Most likely you will use these for any column that will have actually percentage in it, or any value with decimals. So this actually here explains exactly what the table structure is, and it will help you actually when you try to create a new table, and will give you an idea of what kind of values you can be entering towards each of these columns based on what you define as a data type for each of those columns. Alrighty, and last item that I have here is questions and answers. So please leave all your questions in the comments below within this video here, and I will make sure actually to answer all of them the moment I get to them. And thank you for watching this video, and please stay tuned for all my future videos that I will be posting very shortly. They will go over SQL coding and how to use SQL commands, functions, and you name it. So if you like this actually video, make sure to share it with your friends. If you have any friends that are interested in learning SQL with your relatives, kids, and make sure to subscribe to this channel, and don't forget to click on that bell icon, so or notification actually icon, so I will be so you will be notified whenever I create a new video. You'll be the first one to know about it, and you can watch those videos as well. Thank you again for watching. I'll see you soon on my next videos.